My name is Chloe, and my manual was on planning an event, specifically a backyard wedding. So the first thing I do is define success, goals and milestones, happy clients and guests, and the reader can achieve success through incremental learning throughout the manual. It's important first for the client to get to know the planner and the planner to get to know the client. So this should be done interview style, not interrogation. It should be friendly in a safe and quiet environment. So like an office or over coffee. It could be done over the phone. It could be done in person. It's more beneficial in person since it's a little bit more personable. Questions that a client might ask a planner includes what makes you an exceptional planner compared to others. And a planner might ask a client, where are you in the planning process? Because sometimes the client hasn't planned at all, and sometimes they've already planned a lot. Stationery includes envelopes, save the dates, invitations, RSVPs, and details card. And I give a complete guideline on how to do this step by step, and also how to take client feedback. And the assessment for the save the date is to make your own save the date according to an imaginary client's wants. And then for the RSVP and envelope assessment, I gave 2 examples, and you had to find all the errors. And like, for example, like right here, you'll see that the word declines is spelled wrong on RSVP. It's missing a vegetarian option. And the word entree is spelled wrong. And there actually are some other issues with this, but those are like the main ones. And on here, on the envelope, Timothy Beckham is listed both as receiver and the sender. And the stamp is all the way to the left. So that's also an issue. So food. There's various foods, and I go over the pros and cons. Buffet, it has lots of options, but it's a little more casual. Plated meals are great, but they are usually a little more expensive, and you need more wait staff to hand it out quickly so it doesn't get cold. You have food trucks, which can take a while to give out food. They're usually a little more expensive than buffets, but they are a bit more fun to have. Past hors d'oeuvres are cool, but they take a bigger chunk of the budget. But they're really good if you want a social event. And then you also have cake and punch for a more casual wedding that's more budget friendly. You don't usually serve meal there. Then you have like a cake and dessert table. And for the assessment, I gave a multiple choice question where I gave a scenario and you had to choose the best food option. Next up, you had vendors, and there are other vendors in this that you can hire, but these are the main ones. Someone that does the bathrooms, caterers, waitstaff, photographers, videographers, transportation, the florist, the officiant, the DJ, and others. And one of the assessments for this was that you had all the names of the vendors here, and you had what they do on the right, and you had to kind of match the name of the vendor to their role in the wedding. Next up, you have rentals. Rentals are highly dependent on how many people you have. They're highly dependent on what kind of wedding you're having. So, tent, tables, chairs, thrones, drinkware, dishware, silverware, linens, miscellaneous. You need a bigger tent if you have more people. If you want a very fancy looking pictures, you want really upscale pictures, you might go for Chiavari chairs. Yeah. So contracts, permits, insurance, all very important. Contracts tell you what the vendors are supposed to do, what their roles are, what their duties are, what they are going to give you. They tell you what happens in case something goes wrong, typically. Permits. Permits are really important to keep your event running, making sure it's legal, it keeps you safe. When I did an event in Ridgewood, you had to make sure that the fire department, I believe it was like the fire chief, had to come and check on the food truck, because if the food truck was not checked on, your event could actually get shut down. And then you also have insurance, because you need liability insurance in case someone gets hurt on your property, in case there is damage. It could also be if someone drives under the influence from your event. Next up is music. Music is a really important part of weddings. You have ceremony music, reception music, live musicians. There's a whole process to the ceremony music, including changing music as you get closer to the ceremony and changing music as certain people walk down the aisle. Live musicians are really popular for weddings. If you can afford them, they can cost more than a DJ because they are usually very highly skilled individuals. Um, DJs are as well, but you're paying, instead of one person, you're paying for 4 or 5 people typically. And you can have things like quartets, string quartets, jazz trios, a brass band. And the assessment for there was to find local musicians and find out their costs for events. Then you have decor, including floral, centerpieces, arches, decorative, ceremony structures, floral aisle decor, signage, and lounges. And the assessment here was to create kind of a Pinterest board, 3 separate boards of 3 different themes. Next up is a floor plan, and I'll give examples, pros and cons, of each floor plan. Horseshoe plans are really cool, but they're kind of unique because they have a unique shape, and they're really good if you have a more tight space, and if you are looking to make sure that people are paying attention to the main event, because everybody can see and hear the speaker. But it is a little more unconventional. Cocktail style is like the high top tables over here. People are meant to stand and eat. Usually it's past hors d'oeuvres. Sometimes you'll see cocktail style tables mixed in with other types of tables. You have round tables, which is you see at the bottom left. This is a little bit more intimate. It's really good for a sit down dinner. It is a little less space efficient. And then you also have table rows, which are pretty awesome, and they look really good in pictures. However, if you don't have enough space per person, it can be really difficult to get it in and out. And the scenario here was that, the scenario in this one was given, and you had to decide which style of floor plan worked the best for the client. Next up are timelines. These are just examples of timelines, but there are timelines that will lead up to the event and the timelines to the day of the event. And it's really important to try to stick to them. They are a little flexible, but you don't want to try booking a photographer the day before. It's better to book that like a year before if possible. Day of procedure. The day of procedure, there's a checklist. Get this done, make sure to put out signage. Make sure that you know where all the rings are, etc., etc. Ceremony procedure: who walks down first, who walks down second, when does music change, reception procedure, the grand entrance, photos, dinner. Teardown happens when people have to clean up. You want to make sure everything gets back to where it should be. You need to make sure that gifts are put somewhere safe. Emergency kit is just what the planner should have on them at all times. And the phone necessities include things like a charger. It includes also like whose contacts you need. You need all the contacts of the vendors. You need all the contacts of the parents that are attending and the grandparents that are attending. Anyone that's really important that you don't want to miss the event. The assessment here was to take 5 items from the emergency kit, and it was a long list. It had things like a pocket tool. It had things like zip ties. It had a first aid kit, for example. And you had to choose 5 items and write 5 scenarios which the items could be helpful. Then post-event, there's a day after where you have to make sure that all the vendors were paid. You had to make sure everyone got everything got returned. And then you also have 2 weeks later, and by then you should have written thank you notes to the clients. You had to follow up with a couple. Maybe you sent them a survey so that you could potentially get a testimonial. And you also should be writing personal notes about vendors. Who did you like working with? Who might you not recommend in the future? I'm not saying that you'll actively discourage them, but someone that you wouldn't actively reach out to, things like that. So here are some documents that you might share with the client, including vendors checklist. Make sure you have all the vendors done. Vendors utilize the exact vendor, time of their service they offer, how much they cost, and also rental information. Extra practice happened at the very end. I had 5 role-playing assessments. For example, one is that a couple wants decor that exceeds their total budget, and you have to have someone play the couple and someone plays you, or you play yourself, excuse me. Then you have the STAR method, which is situation, task, action, and result. And it goes over how to answer with the STAR method, and you have 3 minutes to plan and 3 minutes to explain your answer to a mentor. And an example of that would be you just had an event that went exceedingly well. However, there was a hitch. One challenge you had was that the caterer arrived late according to contract, and food was not served according to timeline. Overall, the couple is happy for the event, with their event, excuse me. The caterer has asked you to write a review and refer them to another couple. Do you? Do you not? How do you handle the situation? And you have to explain what you would do. And the very final assessment was you had to do a full planning of event from top to bottom, and you're given freedom to do what you'd like, but there is a budget you have to go over, and you're choosing all local vendors. So that was everything, and I have all my references here. Yeah. If you have any questions or you want to talk about it, let me know. I hope you enjoyed.